What's up, everybody? Today we're going to talk about Hayden Christensen. Anakin Skywalker might be returning to Star Wars, and in my opinion this should have happened in the sequels because they brought back Palpatine and Anakin should have been there, but he wasn't even mentioned. So as much as I want to be excited for this news, we all heard about the Obi-Wan Kenobi series that is happening. It's being produced for Disney Plus. And Ewan McGregor is back, and those are all exciting things. And I mean, who does not like Obi-Wan and Anakin? It would be great to see them back, but obviously it still worries me because how are they going to handle the story? So it all depends on how they will handle the stories. If they handle it the way that they did in the sequel trilogy, I am not going to like it, because in my opinion the sequel trilogy does not respect George Lucas' story. It does not complete as a whole. It's mostly about a Palpatine that calls herself a Skywalker in the end. Not even Ben Skywalker, Ben Solo actually helps Rey defeat Palpatine. Anakin is just a stupid voiceover that no one, it's not enough. I just really despise these new films, mostly because I just think they completely disrespected the original characters and there was no need for that. So taking all of that into consideration, I mean, it's exciting to see him returning. Hayden Christensen, I have no problem against him. I never even knew about any backlash towards the actors and the prequels, because when I grew up, I was a kid watching this, and I never heard about this, not until I came here in America that I heard about this. So for me, these are great news. I'd love to see him, but the problem is, how will this fit into the story? Because the Obi-Wan Kenobi series was supposed to take place during that time where Obi-Wan is taking care of Luke, and one of the problems with the series is that they were saying that it's very similar to The Mandalorian. And obviously The Mandalorian is a huge hit, so now they need to come up with something a little more creative to make this show stand out, not just be another copy of The Mandalorian. And they also have to be concerned about how this will fit with the original and the prequels, because this movie is taking place in between. And because George Lucas is not involved, I am concerned, of course, because if there's one person that wouldn't know how to answer certain questions, it would be George Lucas. But it appears that Lucasfilm right now, it's not really concerned about George's idea, and that is the kind of stuff that makes me a little bit worried, because it would be so great to see Anakin back. Or right now he's Vader. During this time, he would be Vader. But there are ways to bring him back. Of course, they could use the old flashback, for instance. I'm sure there's a lot of other stuff that happened between Obi-Wan and Anakin that we weren't able to see in the prequels. So there's a lot of things, a lot of ways to bring him back. But if they actually have Vader and Obi-Wan face to face, it's going to be weird, because in the New Hope it clearly explains that it appears that the last time they saw each other was in Mustafar, right? So I don't know what they will do, but okay, let's read and see what they're saying here. According to LRM, I don't even know what that is, Christensen is going to be a regular on the Obi-Wan show, implying he'll have a substantial role. The idea was to announce this and now canceled Star Wars Celebration 2020. So, assuming this is true, it remains to be seen when Lucasfilm will officially confirm this. Now, I believe that Lucasfilm is trying to get the fans back, and I believe this will be a way to bring a lot of people back, especially those that really love the prequels. They have, they're not prequel haters like myself, but at the same time, how will they handle the story? That's my biggest concern. It's worth keeping in mind this is a rumor and should be taken with a grain of salt. Kind of weird the reporting of it. It is a rumor. I don't know. It might. Hopefully, it's a good rumor. Hopefully, they're thinking to do this, but in a really good way. Anakin and Obi-Wan were good friends and went through a lot together in the prequels and the Clone Wars, with the Disney Plus show set to explore Obi-Wan's personal trauma. So it will be a lot of flashback. It would make complete sense to bring him back. It wouldn't be surprising if he was still haunted by his failure and had flashbacks about his experience with Anakin. Okay, now I'm on board, because this will completely make sense. Because one of the things that Obi-Wan was blaming himself was that he failed Anakin, and I completely agree. Because Obi-Wan, along with all the Jedi Knights, were completely blind to certain things that were happening around them, you know. That's why Palpatine was able to blind them all through his evil plan, you know. And Anakin being a different type of Jedi, they should have known that, you know. He wasn't trained ever since he was really young. According to them, he was already old when he started. They should have been a little more flexible, but they don't. The kind of like thinking is just it was their demise. So okay, these are good news. What's interesting that Christensen is said to have a principal role on the show. So if he does return, he'll factor heavily into the main story. Obi-Wan is going through rewrites, so it's difficult to predict what the narrative will entail. Originally, it was said to have a plot similar to The Mandalorian, but that's presumably changed. Okay. Oh, wow. So yes, they need to do something to make Obi-Wan Kenobi series stand out, because, you know, Mandalorian was a huge hit, but if they get you know, think about it, if Obi-Wan is just there looking after Luke, it's kind of what the Mandalorian is doing with Baby Yoda. So yes, it is a very similar story. They have to use their creative. In my opinion, they should just go consult George Lucas. George Lucas is the genius behind the success of Star Wars. You know, people can complain about the prequels as much as they want, and I agree with a lot of the criticism. I believe George should have not directed those films. I think if he was just the guy creating the story, and now if he had hired another director to direct those films, we would have had better films. The problem is that he had too much control over one thing, and that's not how filmmaking works. You need other ideas. It's a very collaborative work, because you need to feel when things are making sense and when it's not making sense. And maybe if it's everything just in your head, you might lose sight of that. And that's why I think, and I believe George Lucas knew all of that. Like if you go back and you watch the, you know, behind the scenes of the Phantom Menace, you can tell that even George himself said, I went too far. So he knew that. He knew all of that. So I believe that George is a genius. I believe Star Wars without George Lucas is suffering right now. And I believe that if they went for him, they went to George Lucas for advice and got the story from him, or no, basically all you have to do is ask, what happened to Obi-Wan Kenobi during the time he was there watching over Luke? George Lucas would know the answer, and that would be the show. But if they're not doing that, then I'm a bit concerned, I gotta say. So it'd be nice to see Christensen return. It would give him a chance to bow out of Star Wars on a higher note than before. Really, depending how the show goes. He's demonstrated solid acting chops in his non-prequel roles. And okay, so people are always complaining about the acting in the prequels, and I agree, most of it was not very good. But you have to really blame the director when it comes to those things. You know, the director has to get the best performances from the actors, and you know, they do a lot of takes. You need to pick the best ones. So I don't know, like I said, I believe George Lucas should not have directed those films, but anyways, I think people are way too hard on the actors here, because actors are usually just following directions. Okay, it would be interesting to watch him play Anakin for a different director. Okay, there's also an opportunity here to flesh out Anakin and Obi-Wan's relationship. That would be okay, I'm not opposed to that. The Clone Wars did a lot of leg work depicting their dynamic, I agree. But the prequels arguably only scratched the surface. Yes, definitely agree. So there's so much we learn on the Clone Wars TV series that we couldn't see that in the films, obviously, because there's not enough time. So it would be nice to see that. Many viewers would enjoy Christensen and Ewan McGregor reunited, displaying the strong natural chemistry of long-time friends. If handled properly, it would make Anakin's turn on the dark side all more tragic. Totally agree. Like I said, guys, I do love Star Wars, and you know, I am not a Star Wars hater, but I am I've been criticizing Disney Star Wars because I don't think they're getting it right. I think that's the only thing fans can do if they don't like the material. They have to criticize it, you know, they have to make sure they voice their opinions, and hopefully the companies will hear it. I believe Jon Favreau is the guy that did a great job with The Mandalorian. He understands fandom, he understands storytelling, he understands Star Wars, and I think that the people that were in charge of the sequel trilogies did not, you know, and I just think that they were just thinking about all these huge expensive sets and all these ships and all of that, and yes, okay, that's great to have in the film, but it's you know, if you don't have a great story, that's a failure in my opinion. But those are the news. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Would you like to see Anakin Skywalker back on the Obi-Wan Kenobi series? And if yes, how? How would you accept it? Yes, thanks for watching. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that thumbs up, subscribe for more, and I'll see you next time. Bye.